I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. It's a lovely day here in New York City. Fall has begun. Andrew, are you excited to move from brat summer to age gap autumn?
Wow. Well, feeling the age gap in multiple facets of my life. But are you talking about the youngins doing something cool again?
As in dating people much older than them?
Is this an all-year occurrence, or is this strictly for the fall?
Fall is indicative of dying, of the leaves withering on trees
Peeping.
as we prepare to go into hibernation. So it's only appropriate that partners are closer to the grave than they were during summer, which is a season of abundance.
Well, the things you do in the fall, I guess every season costs money, but in the fall, you got to drive up to Vermont, get those riggies, peep the leaves. That costs a little bit of money, bed and breakfast. What do? You go to Tavern on the Green in New York City. It's no longer like Canal Streeting it up with like cracking deli beers on the street. It costs money, and young people don't have that cash. So you got to look upwards to the 50, 60, 70-year-olds to flow that lifestyle.
You make a great point. Like, yes, you summer in Bushwick. You know, if you are of a certain class, you may be diving off of cliffs in Greece. But if you are not, if you're a city dweller, you are listening to TV on the radio with a can of Tecate on a roof in Bushwick, living the real indie sleaze dream. Then fall rolls around. You've got to soft launch your relationship. You got to leaf peep. So you find yourself a nice 70-year-old, a nice 80-year-old, someone who is old enough to be president of the United States. And lock it down.
The brain volume fluctuates. Sometimes they have 100% of their brain. Sometimes a worm has eaten up to 50% of their brain.
To me, the most appropriate is like 30-70.
Ooh, 30-70. So the 30% that's gone is like what part ideally would be missing? You're saying the 30% gone, not 70% gone.
Oh, I was thinking more like the age of like age 30 to age 70 being appropriate. But
brain volume.
in terms of segments of your cerebellum that have been devoured by parasites, you want like 30% gone.
Right. You want the part gone that still thinks Jinko jeans might make a comeback, that a fun afternoon might be had at like the New York Giants tailgating party. You don't want any indie sleaze around, so hopefully the worms will have eaten that part away.
Yeah, you want the brainworms, I think, to eat everything post 2012.
Oh, I heard
you want to be
2009
calcified.
Right.
We could say 9, but you want to be really trapped in amber, like ensconced in a nice pair of cheap Mondays.
Right. Yeah.
Like acne jeans that you would never wash.
You don't wash acne.
Or no, I'm sorry, APC. APC, I stand corrected.
Acne make good jeans. You know, people would wear them in the shower to clean them, and then wear them wet so they would form to your body. So hopefully that part of your brain will be eaten by worms.
So you don't have to wash them. You just put them in the freezer once every 6 months and they'll come out clean as a whistle.
Just throw them in your sauna. That'll do it.
I tried putting my jeans in the freezer and it killed my brainworms.
Wow. Right, because as soon as you get stuff cold, it kills all the worms. What is this age gap autumn really about, though? Like 30-70, as long as you're ripped and about that healthy lifestyle like RFK Jr., you're talking, and if you're a grouchy 30, that's like a 40, and then he comes down to like a 50, so you're kind of close.
Well, as a very devout Muslim, I feel like the math is, wasn't it like double your age and then add 10 from the women's perspective? Isn't that like
So a
the way of
20-year-old would be with a 50-year-old?
Yeah, the way of the Quran. Yeah.
Wow. I'm more of an eye test person. I don't like these numbers. If you look you look ancient,
I'm like an age gap. I'm an age gap nerd. I'm about the age gap metrics. You know, it used to be, well, traditional Brat Summer. You know, that's like half your age plus 7, right? But age gap autumn, different math. Look, there are leaves to peep. You've got to go to an orchard. You need to drive.
Remember,
stakes are higher.
Remember when the internet was like really into Helen Mirren, and everyone's just like, "Oh my god, she's incredible. She looks like she's 30. How do you age that well?" And then people stop talking about her. Is it because she just like let nature like happen and just became who she was? I don't know. Like, where's the Helen Mirren talk? Helen Mirren.
Right. Who was the other guy that was it? Paul Rudd or someone who was like on the male side? Like, he doesn't age. He's Peter Pan. It's like,
before Susan Sarandon had opinions, people were saying that about her. I don't want to genderize the age gap autumn. Like, I'm really into like 70, 80, 90-year-old women.
I'm saying it goes both ways. Yeah, I'm not dictating how age gap autumn works. I just feel like the ideal is like a 31-year-old hotshot reporter working on the story of a lifetime with one of the greatest political minds of our era, from the most storied political family, from Camelot, if nothing else.
Part of worm lore. There was Dune. Maybe he's Dune too. Those sandworms. But like, is there a more famous worm guy in history?
Ooh. Oh, Dennis Rodman?
Rodman. Right. There's Rodman. Yeah, done. I mean, it would be your boy Timothée Chalamet at this point, right? Surfing those worms.
That's true. Well, remember the song "The Funky Worm"? Or is that like a beat break? There's something funky worm. I can't remember if it was.
You mean like the
Parliament? No, I think it was like Parliament, Funkadelic, like a George Clinton. I thought there was like a funky worm.
Oh, hey.
Am I just making that up?
If it wasn't Indie Sleaze, I don't know about it. But
did I go through a 1988 Annihilation event, which is a glitch, and I'm just remembering a fake song called "The Funky Worm," which doesn't
happened
exist?
In 1997. Wait, is the worm like when you like link up and do that, like the arm waving thing, or when you get on the ground and sizzle like bacon?
Yeah, the second.
Oh, okay.
The ground bacon sizzle move is the worm. Sort of similar to the dolphin, but doesn't have quite the elevation. It's more wormish, more serpentine.
Right.
Could you demonstrate the worm for us really quickly?
But I'm standing.
Yep, that's the one.
So Newsy, ironically, making news. She's married to, she was engaged to Chris Lizzo. Is that his name? L-I-Z-Z.
No relation to Lizzo, your favorite musical artist.
Or
or is he?
Or a lizard. Yeah, if we're talking about strange creatures of our kingdom. But he was famously or infamously a freak, right? Like, they tried to cancel him and he was like, hey, there's nothing against being strange. I have strange proclivities. And CNN kind of dispatched of him, but he was like, what the hell? I just get weird. We never found
him. He's like, look, he's like the Ohio players, I have a funky worm.
Like the coach of the 1976ers. I have opinions about my freak.
So you want to talk about Newsy? Fuck, is there a thumbs up? You want to talk about Newsy, or you want to talk about Lizzo? I don't know Lizzo's back history. I do know. I know what you're referring to, which is that he was like, "Match my freak, I dare you."
Yeah, famously. But he's not that interesting here. So she's covering Donald Trump. and the Trump campaign, and she focuses on RFK Jr. and she writes like, I think there's like a misinterpretation. There's two ways to look at journalism, right? People who are mad at the way Newsy talks about politics and the way Maggie Haberman does, these are like prose writers. So they take digs, but it's subtle. It's not like, F this person, they're not electable. It's like, well, this person had his brain eaten by worms. And they're like, it's more like of a journalistic traditional dig. So whereas Maggie Haberman kind of went viral at the same time, Newsy wrote a controversial piece about RFK Jr., I believe, for New York Magazine that kind of painted him as like a game changer, that he would sidle up to Donald Trump, your guy, and kind of take enough middle votes away from Kamala Harris to make a noticeable difference. And people were like, this seems like a bias here. And to find out they had an emotional relationship was delicious.
So this was the same story, and correct me if I'm wrong, that discussed his bear prank, right? Where he found the bear by the road and then took it and put it in Central Park, the carcass of a bear that had been hit by a car.
The baby bear.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Newsy's history is interesting because she's described, as I just described her, as like a hotshot reporter, like a superstar. And like, it's mostly because she's wrote large scale stories about famous politicians, but that's kind of her claim to fame. She did a Trump piece. She did this piece. I'm sure she did some other ones. It's weird how we view those as the important stories because like ultimately she's not doing incredible journalism. She's getting access to, well, I'm saying she's getting access to really powerful people who are in the news cycle.
Listen, we're not talking about Adrian Wojnarowski just yet, but go on.
Well, I mean, she hasn't done like investigative journalism and she's like, I uncovered this thing. She's doing profiles of famous politicians and we pretend that politics are more important than sports or entertainment because of the larger stakes, whatever. I'm not knocking her. I'm saying this is more of the context of her fame. She's also an attractive woman. And that's undeniably part of the story that kind of separates her, and this is not a dig, from Haberman, who is viewed as like, the hatred for Haberman comes from a similar approach to kind of access politics, where her strength is in that she can talk with people on both sides of the aisle and is viewed as sympathetic to kind of everyone.
She's tenacious.
And that,
yeah, she's old school journalism.
Right. But it's like her relationships are why she's able to do what she does. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think Newsy is like a much better writer, just in terms of writing stories and reporting.
Different kinds of journalists, right?
Yeah, I think Newsy is entertaining as a writer in a way that Haberman just is not at all.
Haberman's a beat writer. She gives you daily occurrences and is on shows. Newsy hides out and gives you one piece every 4 months.
That's a great way of putting it. So the story that came out, and again, there's a lot of damage control, is that this, I think, happened yesterday or this morning. This was like a new leak from someone, and it was that.
Oh, I have not heard of this.
After the story was done, she sent him provocative text, and he blocked her. And then she reached out and was like, "Hey, there's a hit piece coming. I have to warn you about it." And he unblocked her. Then she started sending him nudes, and then he kept blocking her, and she kept using other methods of communication to get to him with word of an impending hit piece. Kept using that, and then kept sending increasingly provocative texts and images. And at that point, it was just too hard for RFK Jr. to resist. That was how it was portrayed, which is like a kind of an amazing kicker. It wasn't that this just ended up getting more intense and weird. It was that RFK crumbled at the end of it. Like, what can I do? I'm only one man.
Wait, so she was persistent enough where he was finally like, this may be detrimental to my interest, but here's a picture of my balls.
Like, I'm a married man, but like, you've pushed me to the limit. Here's my boner baby.
Here is my right testicle. Whoa. I did not hear this part. So she
now this was reported. I read it somewhere. It wasn't like a rumor that's floating around. It was published somewhere yesterday or today, but it's also one side of it.
Ryan Lizza.
Well, right. I mean, it's one side of this. It could be coming from his camp, who's like, he's the innocent victim of this. He would never have done it. He's a married man. He's 70 years old. But then it's like, boom, age gap autumn.
Is it weird for me to kind of not care about everyone's freak? Like, is this different than buying somebody? Well, as a journalist, you should not spend any money or accept any gifts, right? This is part of a code. $20 is about it. So you can't really like take out a subject to like a nice dinner at a Christmas restaurant. That would be against protocol. But like at some point, things are so fast and loose. And if Newsy wants to rewrite the rules of this game, she should have just been transparent about it. She'd be like, I've seen his balls. I got a picture of his balls one way or another. That's all I'm saying. Here's the article.
I mean, my thing is that like there are obviously rules to journalism, as you mentioned. You know, when I was covering nightlife for the Times, which is certainly not a high stakes environment, but it is for the people who are operating, you know, a new bar or a club, whatever. Like they care about it. And as you said, they'll always say, hey, do you want some drinks? Come by, I'll take care of you. And we were basically allowed to take like a drink. That was kind of, you know,
under $20
because like they're like, all right, if you take a drink, it's okay. But ideally you would pay for it yourself. The problem was they didn't really budget you any money. So you go to a place where it's like, all right, the drinks here are $18 a cocktail. And they're like, yeah, you know, keep your night at this place where you're supposed to be hanging out, you know, on like $40 or something. You're like, all right, I will. Like, then like, am I going to spend my own money to be in this club I don't want to be into? Or like, could you possibly be in like a Russian karaoke bar for 3 hours without drinking? Like, what do you expect from me? I'm only one man.
What am I, a journalist? I don't have.
I mean, like, you're expecting me not to drink? Come on.
I mean, I've been on both sides of that, right? Like when I was doing music reviews for the New York Times, I used to be given, you know, like doormen would know, and they would just be like, here's 4 drink tickets. And you can either give them away, not use them. Like, you know, I don't use them. And then when I was part of a club, owning a club, I used to be like, there's somebody, Ben Dietrich's going to write about this in the style section. Here's 15 margaritas.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff when people would give you drink tickets, like I felt the same way. I'm like, I can't use these. And also the problem is if you take them, even if like you don't use them, you've still taken the drink tickets.
And
so
you've
like,
given them
to me,
to your
those are like
homies.
ones,
Yeah.
right? If you're like, oh, I didn't use them. It's like, yeah, but you still absorbed whatever, $200 worth of drinks and charitably gave them out. But that's your choice. You've taken the drinks at that point. So yeah, I agree. But I am sort of with you on this one, and not to defend Newsy because I don't know exactly what occurred, right? If she's lying to him about a journalistic crisis incoming to warn him, and then is like, and you know, here's my boobs. Then that would I'm saying that would feel very much like a journalistic breach where you're presenting that you need to talk to someone because you're going to give them a favor for journalism, and then using it to sext is like just ridiculous.
And it's like cultural, right? Like foot people might be like, oh damn, I sent someone a picture of my feet, and I'm like, those are just picture of feet. It's like in some cultures like an exposed face. I don't know. It's like maybe she's so freaky, we should respect and identify her bias, right? Like if we're going to divide people up on the way we look, then maybe if she's sending like pictures of her abs or her toes, I don't know, could mean nothing, could mean everything.
Well, yes, that's true. I'm mostly saying that. I mean, look, I think when a male reporter, I'm just using the gender here, goes and writes a story about a male candidate, okay, there may not be a sexual component, but there still can be a total bias, right? So I just mean, are we worried about that her getting horned up, like rizzed up by the Rizzler himself?
Respect.
RFK Jr. She's rizzed up.
He's a goat Rizzler.
He's a goat Rizzler,
as we know.
And that's going to compromise her story. But at the same time, if a guy, and I'm saying this could be a woman who isn't, I'm just saying a male who may not have a sexual interest at all in the Rizzler is still going to get rizzed and might write a favorable proxy? Story. Rizzed by proxy. Might write a favorable story because he wants RFK Jr. to like him, because RFK Jr. is a powerful, wealthy man with connections like to the lore of America, to Camelot, to every Vanity Fair cover for the last 25 years. You might say, oh, I'm going to write a really fawning profile of this guy because I want him to like me. I want him to be a confidant. I want to be his friend. So like the motivation for writing a story that has bias doesn't necessarily make like sex a primary reason for compromising journalism. It could be literally anything.
I agree. And New York Magazine has to do this because they're one of the more reputable sources. But also, an editor there must be like, this is exactly what we want. Now she's part of the news. Now everyone's going to read this article. Her career is kind of like cloudier than it was, but like, this is a gold mine. And I always think of Mike Pence, and people got on Mike Pence for being like, I will never take a lunch or a meeting with a woman. And rightfully, people are like, that's ridiculous. And that is what generations of sexism will do. It's depriving a group of people an opportunity, access, that is also correct. And part of me was like, he figured it out. It's no fun. Like there's nothing's going to happen to this guy in the newsy kind of RFK zone. And when the newsy thing drops, it's like, this is incredible. This is what we want from newsy, the news, journalism, politics. Like, I think everybody ate it up like a worm chewing on a brain.
As they say.
It's just one worm chowing down on that brain.
Same worm, different brain.
The 30% that it was eaten was taken up by the volume of the actual worm.
Yeah, it's a large worm. It's like the size of a couple fists.
Yeah, it's Einstein. The energy just doesn't disappear. The worm gets fat and chills out.
Gets funkier and funkier by the day.
Yeah.
But no, I just feel like there is an inherent sexist element because it's just more provable than a guy being like, yeah, I think this subject is amazing. I want him to like me, and I'm going to write this puff piece. And that never even gets talked about in a sordid manner, but she's just like rizzed up. So all of a sudden it's like the vulnerability of the woman writer and and also he's kind of, again, it's being presented as he's the victim here.
Yeah. Is she the real Rizzler? Is she the one that rizzed him up?
Clearly, right?
Who rizzed first?
Was he just giving off aura, but he got rizzed because of his own aura? Like, did he get reverse rizzed?
Right. He accidentally rizzed. The dreaded reverse rizz. You hate to walk into that one.
Oh, that's brutal. Like, you're just there running for president, but your aura is like plus 1,000, maybe plus 10,000. So then as a result, you inadvertently rizz the intrepid young journalist, who then turns around and rizzes you into submission via increasingly provocative text messages.
Listen, you're just working on your core for like 20 years, eating well, eating real food, like Michelle Obama said. And then you put on a tight white button-down shirt with a huge collar. You're just mogging on your reporter, straight up mogging. Oh, but you stepped into the dreaded reverse mog.
Yeah, we call that an aura echo, where your own aura creates a situation in which you are then rizzed.
It's the Riz reverb.
Yeah, he fell into the dreaded Chad hole.
Oh my! We're talking like we're from Toronto all of a sudden. What the hell's happening? Are we? Are you from Toronto? I'm from Toronto, apparently.
I'm not from Toronto. Rochester, on the other side of Lake Ontario. So I will say I have familiarity with Toronto.
Wait, hold on.
The T-Dot.
Hold on. I got footage of you from your early stomping grounds in Rochester as a young lad. Listen to this, everybody. Expose Ben Dietrich.
None of them are weird. There's bear buck-tees there. And not only that, the parks there are mod things, fam. You can't even ride the swings. There's always a buck-tee on one of the slides, yo.
What the hell? Yo, explain yourself.
Okay, so I was getting a garbage plate. A guy came up to me. He's like, "Hey, we're doing a TikTok series about the toughest areas of Toronto." I was like, and I responded, and I was like, "Look, we run things," and I went from there.
Chet Hanks over here.
So the Toronto accent has become viral at certain points over the last few months, and notably for being, as many people are saying, the worst accent on the planet. And this is what they're saying.
A dethroned. So I love New Zealand, Australian accent, so don't bring that into this.
They're saying it's the worst because it's not real. That people have created a fake accent and now they speak that way, and it didn't exist over 10 years ago.
Which is like Kamalization of language?
Sort of. I mean, the idea here is that Toronto did not have an accent whatsoever outside of the traditional Canadian accent, which is turning, about into a boot.
Oh, you're gonna mess around with the Buddha Hoosers? Hey, poutine.
Yes, yeah. That. And A at the end.
Yeah.
And not even the cool, like the A.
Not Joel Santana, the A. Not A.
It would be much cooler if it was the Joel Santana style. Let's go see the Leafs. Hey, that would have been much better.
Leaf peepers. Yeah, so people are angry. People get angry about language. This is, how we always say, like, sometimes huge ideas on social media boils down to language and whoever writes the right words. This is more of an auditory thing, and we've been debating code switching a lot recently because MAGA people accuse Kamala Harris of doing that. Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson has a bow tie and talks one way, and then all of a sudden is in Bon Iver and speaks a different way.
Age gap auditory. There is also, I'm forgetting his name. Actually, no, his last name is also Kennedy, the Republican who represents somewhere in the South and totally has a fake accent. I mean, W is a good example, right? I believe that at this point, his accent is genuinely Texan because he's lived there for years and years and years and years. But I mean, they're from Maine.
I mean, my accent changes depending on who I'm hanging out with. If I spend 20 minutes with somebody, I start speaking like them. It's a way to acknowledge that you're listening. It's a way to just pick up information. I love it. I think this Toronto accent rules. Is it because a certain race of people are mining another race of people's culture?
There is part of that here, but so Toronto, extremely diverse, right? And it has a lot of Caribbeans. It has a lot of people from like the West Indies. It has a lot of people from Southeast Asia, tons of white people, obviously. So it's a real mix culturally. And I don't know enough about the neighborhoods there to say like, oh, this is from Scarborough or whatever. I don't know their neighborhoods. But it seems to me that this is a mix of Caribbean slang because of the Caribbean community, the traditional Canadian accent that we were talking about with a boot and a, and then also due to Drake getting into Top Boy, there's like a British inflection, which also would sort of make sense because it's a former British colony. So it feels as if there's like Toronto was just a bunch of normal, like white hosers. And they're like, well, we've got Caribbeans here and we're from initially a British background, at least the white culture. And they sing God Save the Queen. And they just created a new accent that did not exist before. And now sounds kind of like a pirate.
I mean, yeah, drill is from the UK, and there's a lot of drill going on in the different boroughs in New York City. And the affectations are also transmuted. Are we cultural segregationists? Like, you know me, I want the LA Lakers to just be all pretty boy actors. I want New York Knicks to be all like Yankees cap and Timberland guys. And I want New Orleans to be all like chubby po' boy restaurateurs, the Pelicans. But do we do this with culture? Do we say, Canada, Toronto, stay in your lane? You're not allowed to adopt these things from other places.
It feels more about the intentionality, I guess, that this just wasn't there before. And that it's an attempt, successful, I guess, to create a new identity. And as someone who grew up on the other side of Lake Ontario and went to Toronto many times and have known many people from Toronto, this accent absolutely did not exist. Like, wasn't a thing. And this is a recent development. So that is sort of, I think, what incurs a lot of irritation, is that the slang, the cadences, this is just not how people spoke. But then again, we're here talking about rizzing and your mewing streak. So I guess you can just create a new language. I guess we have to support that, and we should, right? We want language to be innovative. Otherwise, we're just going to be sounding like the Pilgrims or some shit.
You don't want to date and marry the person living next door. You want all these apps and these bots to choose between thousands of different things. And then you, by the time you're in your own age gap autumn, you are an amalgamation, a curated amalgamation of everything you've been through, right? And then maybe the suddenness of like Brat Summer is like annoying to maybe someone who's been doing Brat Summer for 20 years, but that's just the way things go. You're poor forever and broke overnight, right? So Toronto was linguistically poor forever and was broke apparently at some point this summer.
I follow.
Like,
it just feels also very much tied to Drake, which is a funny thing for this now to get prominence, for being like this terrible accent that everyone hates, that's derivative and phony. And it's tied to Drake, who is obsessed over the last 6 months, his interest informed this accent because he loved Top Boy and became the producer of it.
And let's be real,
Caribbean,
obsessed with Rihanna, right? His whole life.
Yeah.
Like orbiting Rihanna's entire thing. So I feel like his interest in Top Boy is a result of that.
Right. But yeah, I think it is kind of clear that Drake's interests have created the way that people in Toronto speak.
This is awesome. This is what we want, right? Like, we want artists to do things that interest them, and we want life to kind of imitate that art. Because it happens the other way around.
Yes, that's true. But it's interesting though that this is occurring at a time when Drake has suffered his greatest humiliation.
That's true.
Which I think is lending itself to the mockery in some ways of this accent, because it is so Drake-ish, and the timeline of its creation absolutely dovetails with Drake becoming a global superstar and everyone having hometown pride for this guy who is now viewed as a bit of a laughingstock. That doesn't mean he doesn't have hits or he can't come back, but Kendrick, gave him a whipping, gave him a real drubbing.
Kendrick took it to another level, and Drake has yet to respond. Sometimes you just have to wait, but like this This desire by some news followers to see the downfall of pop stars, especially pop stars of color, is something very visceral, especially now, right? Because your boy, bad boy for life, Puff Daddy, had a big week.
So, not to draw any real parallels between Drake and Diddy, your guy.
Alleged parallels.
Right. I'm saying I'm going to draw parallels, but I'm saying I'm not. It's like me saying, doing the quote spoiler thing, like no spoilers, but here's the spoiler.
Okay, so you're gonna accuse Drake of certain things. Go.
I'm saying not to draw parallels. I'm not. That's not what I'm doing.
Okay, got you. Now draw parallels.
Right. Yeah. So now I'm going to draw the parallels. Is that there's something to the way that both Drake and Diddy have treated people, I think, in the industry that has lent it to a sense of jubilation over them taking a defeat. And it has less to do with like the degree of what they've done. That's where I'm not drawing a parallel to like Puffy's alleged crimes and Drake's alleged indiscretions, whatever they are. I'm saying mostly that in the way that Puff has had a really bad track record of taking care of artists on his labels, Drake seemed to have rubbed a lot of his, former associates, people who he'd collaborated with, the wrong way, and they were really eager to jump out there and dog pack when he was, being subjected to mockery from Kendrick. Whether it was Future or Rick Ross, there was this, people jumped in and like, yes, get him. And that's the parallel I'm drawing, that there has to be something about Drake's business practices and relationships with other artists that was transactional. And it feels like Puffy or Diddy, however you want to call him, you look at that track record of artists who were on Bad Boy. And I know recently he did give back some of the masters and
famously Mace, right?
Yeah, not masters, but the publishing rights back to some of those artists who he had bought them from when he had signed contracts. But you look at that, Biggie died. Black Rob seemed like he died impoverished. Craig Mack died impoverished. I don't know what 112 or Total is doing. G-Dep was impoverished and then ended up going to jail after admitting to a murder that he'd created, that he had committed years earlier. Like a really rough group of stories coming out of the guys who were ostensibly Bad Boy for life at one time.
And there was a copious amount of money made off of an independent label like Bad Boy during the heyday of like TRL, MTV, Biggie Smalls, all that stuff. But Puffy made a ton of his money away from music, right? With Sean John, with alcohol, with investments.
Ciroc.
Yeah, I don't think like Mace was in on that or Shine was in on that. No. But
also Shine, another key example. There was an interview from a couple days ago. He's like, he ruined my life. I don't wish him any malice. I'm not taking joy about him being arrested, but this man destroyed my life.
Yeah. And this man maybe gave him life by being like, this is the next Biggie. Not many people would have succeeded as the next Biggie without the cosign of Biggie's right-hand man, Puff Daddy, right?
But Barack Obama, yeah.
Yeah. But I feel bad for Shine. We've always felt bad for Shine because we know he took the rap for something that happened at Justin's. It was at Justin's, right? Where did the shooting?
It was at Club New York.
Club New York. Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of knew, common knowledge, that Shine wasn't the one to go down for that necessarily, but he did. He went to jail, and I don't know.
Shine's recollection of it was vague. I don't know what he said in the courtroom, at the time but like Puff basically testified against him.
Yeah,
that Shine was defending Puff, and then Puff was like, "Yeah, he just decided to get his gun out and go crazy. I don't know. I ran away with J-Lo. I couldn't tell you what happened."
And I heard that this was an agreement that Shine had with him. I don't know. This is public knowledge. Like he took the fall for his boss. he was going to get out and his boss was going to make life good for him, which maybe did or did not happen. But yeah, now people are really salivating, really anticipating, sort of like in an Epstein way, the dominoes falling. Oh, is it going to hit Obama? Was it Jay-Z's next? And this fascination with To Catch a Predator is a part of social media that I like find unnerving. Like, who's the pedophile? And I'm like, I don't know. This is kind of a dark thing. Aren't all these people victims? If they were at these parties with the assumption that they were at an industry jam and they're getting drugged and doing stuff, like, they are victims, right?
Well, it's like that old saying about, if you don't know who the sucker is at a card game,
Yes.
if you're at a white party and you don't know who the predator is,
right?
You can't find the pedophile. Look out.
I mean, these parties sound crazy.
But so this is what I think is very unfair, right? Beyond the idea of we need to expose his victims so we can mock them, which is really fucked up, but is the idea that anyone who is seen at a party with one of the most famous people in, music history, at least
absolutely
in the modern era,
yeah,
who was incredibly social, was throwing parties that were a must go to event, like Puffy's white party in the Hamptons. It was the model for the guy who, Michael Rubin. It's literally what he based it on. The white party. It was a legendary 90s, early 2000s event that Puffy hosted
White,
in the same place.
Betty White,
JoJo White.
JoJo White. Yeah. I mean,
Jack White.
Nice. Meg White. Yeah, the salacious kind of thirst for the underbelly in which power is distributed in a system like America is like a theme that MAGA has grasped onto. But, I'll read any damn book about this stuff. Like, that's crazy. Like the Kennedys, for example, like much has been said about their family and how they proceeded with their business. But, I mean, the Trumps are right there as well. But I don't know. It feels like, and this is where I may not have the stomach for the news, it feels really dark and these parties seem really crazy. I don't really want to know. Like,
well, I think that's kind of where I'm seeing this being unfair. I think a lot of these parties were 20 some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Puff was on this same level of depravity, of being predatory.
We don't know.
But this is when I'm not saying that he didn't have these tastes or there weren't things going on. I only mean that if there's a photo of Puff and like J-Lo, this doesn't mean that something insane was happening. This doesn't mean that she's complicit with what he was doing. When you see him like around like the guys on Bad Boy Records, it doesn't mean that he was doing the same side of stuff and they were just like, oh, okay, cool. He's just drugging people. There's thousands of bottles of lube. That doesn't mean this was happening.
I mean, if you get a deal on lube, Costco is Costco, whatever. He may have wanted like 12 bottles of lube, and they're like, if you buy 1,000, it'll be half the price. He's a businessman, man.
I'm just saying the jokes are what they are, but going and finding photos from 20 years ago, and here's Puff and an artist on his label or another celebrity and saying they're in on the freak offs. Yeah. Like, this doesn't seem, it's like a witch hunt for the freak off. And you hate to see that, Andrew. You hate it.
It's a freak hunt. This is just the Twitter thing. In real life, I don't think there's a good way to do this, and I don't think it matters. This is just like a corner of Twitter that loves this stuff, that's gross, that it has an ulterior motive, right? And obviously they're painting Justin Bieber as the number one casualty, and it is sad. Like, if you want to read into like his late life or later in life emotional kind of arc, I'm like, it's hard being famous, it's hard being him, it's hard being a victim. I don't know, all these things. But he's like the white kid, and everyone's just like, all these people of color are the worst, including Obama. We always knew it. And like it gets back to like an election year of demonizing people who don't look like Donald Trump.
I think that makes sense. I agree with you on that. I also think when we're talking about Bieber and we're talking about French Montana or Meek Mill, there is still this underlying haha, you're gay element to it.
It's weird. And same with Puff Daddy. No Diddy, right?
Exactly. And like that's not the thing here. That's not what this is about. It's about abuse and violence and corruption, sexual assault. It's not about Diddy being maybe gay. That's the other thing. It's not even clear that he is. It's like, and again, it doesn't matter, but it's like, that's not even necessarily true. To me, the most fun part of this is that you have kind of straight-laced newscasters and other news, the freak-offs. The idea that freak-offs is now capitalized and said in a stoic, serious tone of voice. Like, oh, well, yes, the freak-offs were said to have occurred. And that to me is kind of amusing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when Donald Trump said shit, right? Someone's like, we're allowed to say this because the president said it. Shithole countries, and that was kind of weird. But this is the whole like two kind of worlds of journalism, right? Like the stuff that has a certain decorum still attached to it, which is like broadcast and writing and Haberman and Newsy, or the stuff with zero decorum, which is Twitter, just people being like, he's a Z-bomb, like, I don't know, like that kind of reporting. And, it's debatable to talk about which has more influence. But if we're going to watch like CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News, it's going to be weird to hear them talk about this. Twitter, it's just super gross.
Yeah, that's true. But have we seen the last of Puff? Is he going to just lose this case? Because I feel like Kells being the closest example on this.
Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is like going to skate, right?
Well, I'm saying it feels like the white guys skate.
I'm saying, I don't know. Somebody on my Twitter feed said something, I forget. I just saw it in passing, was just like, let's assume the best of Puffy just for a second. How much is being a freak illegal? Let's just say he had freaky parties that we heard about in the 70s, like key parties or orgies. Like, is that illegal?
Nothing wrong with that at all. Absolutely not.
Right.
But that's not why he's being charged.
No, right. This is like racketeering and RICO. Right.
Sir, you are being charged with being the freak of the week.
Yeah. And like, people are salivating to hear Jay-Z's name come up in this. And I'm like, sure, his raps have not been fantastic for a long time. Sure, he did Picasso Baby. But like, I don't like the way this goes down. I don't know, whatever. Me not liking it or liking it doesn't matter. But it is like what you talked about. It is I think the individual fears people have of certain taboos in their own life kind of reveal themselves in their accusations.
Yeah, Jay-Z's name keeps coming up, and I have not heard even like whispers about Jay-Z being, a monster, like he's some kind of Sasquatch or Godzilla, a King Kong, a Loch Ness, a goblin, a ghoul. He's not like some zombie.
Yeah.
He's not some zombie with
Franklin
no conscience,
dog. Yeah. No, I mean, the knock on Jay-Z is he's a ruthless businessman, but he wrote a song about it. It's like he double-crossed me in a business deal. I'm like, yeah, he has a song about that. Many songs about that.
He shot his brother. Yeah, he said that in a song. He made a song about
he cheated on
brother, whether it was true or not.
Beyonce with Rihanna, maybe. That was like the most scandalous rumor, right?
those rumors about him were also that, you know, he's a Mason, he's a Satanist. The stuff with him was much more based on him being a cutthroat to the point of immoral or amoral businessman, like so many other very wealthy people are. As people who are on the left would say, it's, you know, there's no such thing as like an innocent billionaire, kind of like that concept. You know, to get that rich, you have to screw people over because you're taking
LeBron James. Yeah.
You're taking such an enormous amount of money from the general population.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think with Jay-Z, it's more that he's powerful and people want to see him taken down. I look at, and you could even talk about this being tied to like Me Too or whatever, just this idea of the takedown. And it's so tied to, you know, the creative realm. It's like music and writing and art and nightlife and restaurants and food, because these are characters and those worlds are ones that we care about and we find interesting. It's like finance. Guys who own chicken processing factories just really slid on all this stuff. These movements have really focused on like a creative group of society, and these places that are likely hotbeds of just horrific abuse just don't really come up.
Right, like politicians. I mean, are you calling
politicians like a little, you know?
Are you calling Mark Robinson an artist of politics? Does he have a certain artistry in his policy making?
He's a real maestro, this one.
This is the craziest story, but not shocking to anybody, right? Knowing that his politics as a North Carolinian and his association with Donald Trump calling him amazingly Martin Luther King Jr. double. What did he say? Times 2?
Yeah, I always called him that too. So I get where that
I'm an eye test
is.
guy.
I'm like,
yeah, I don't know.
Mark Robinson? Yeah, that's like MLK 2, more MLKs.
I mean, as soon as
MLK
Trump,
Jr., MLK the third, I guess.
That's a problem with me and Trump. He loses me as soon as he gets into stats.
Yeah, like follow your gut.
I'm a vibe guy. You got to watch the games, bro.
So, Mark, how would you describe this? So, Mark Robinson is running for office as a Republican, you know, taking the moral high ground. And then people delved a little bit into his online history, and it was rich in lore, if you will.
Whoa. And it's people found comments maybe almost around a decade ago, that he left on an adult website. And they are kind of like edgelordy. You know, there's a tradition of saying things that are extremely outlandish to get interactions. And this stuff was vile. Anyone can just Google it. It is wild stuff. And the reporter, who I watched some YouTubes of this reporter talking about this, he was like, I'm confident it was him. Talk about Burnergate. I'm confident it was him because of certain email addresses, other handles. AI wasn't really a thing by then. You can't really backdate something that has a provenance on the internet. So there isn't like an AI technology that could backdate this comment.
Right.
It's
like he was like using his own photo in some of the stuff.
Yeah.
And the same his username all over the place.
Yes. And there's a blockchain for all this stuff. There's a history, a ledger on the internet, and you cannot supersede that ledger.
So a lot of the stuff was on porn message boards, which is wild. That you're that into porn. It's like, it's not enough for me to just watch this.
Right. I gotta say something.
I got some takes. I got some hot takes here.
Hold on.
About like
Michael Jordan number 1.
What I'm into.
And that is a very sexy pair of feet. I have to express myself.
He did deny that this was him. Correct?
I mean, yeah.
He's like, yeah. I don't know who that.
He said it was an AI. There's been millions of dollars spent on AI to take me down, and everyone's like, sure, maybe so. But he's losing his race anyway.
Are we kink shaming?
That too, right? Well, what he said wasn't necessarily like you have an amazing toe. It was about Hitler, slavery, various Z bombs, Y bombs, O bombs. It was all the bombs to a point where like it should maybe not be disqualifying, but voters should know how you speak.
Well, what it does is show that he is an absolute maniac. I mean,
I want to see his paintings. Like, paint something, Mark Robinson. I want to see your vision.
It's like, okay, look, your political career is likely over, but Outsider Art Fair has a spot for you.
Very outside, extremely outsider, as outside as you can go. No, that's not true. Yeah, pretty inside.
Mein Kampf is a good read. It's very informative and not at all what I thought it would be. It's a real eye-opener. Look, will this guy read a book? Like, learn something. Get out there and read a book. Any book. Just read a book. He's like, I have. And here's what I think.
Listen, I'm going to turn off these Knicks highlights, shut down all my screens, and read Mark Robinson's autobiography. You told me to read a book.
And then there was a lot of very sexually explicit content as well. He called himself a black Nazi, but also so did Kanye.
I know. Right? So, like, I hate to be devil's advocate here, but he's allowed to run for office and be, in my opinion, disgusting and weird and maybe have mental issues like Kanye. Mark Robinson might very well suffer from a disorder that he identifies with. I'm just not going to vote for him. If I lived in North Carolina, I would not vote for him. I would not buy his album anymore.
I think the gist of it was that he calls himself a black Nazi. He supports slavery. He admits to being a peeping Tom
and a perv. And he likes trans artworks.
Claims to have had sex with his wife's sister.
Oh my God. I did not know that stuff.
There's a lot going on. He's a man who contains multitudes.
So he's aspiring to be RFK Jr.
Well, he's never said he has a brain worm.
Maybe he is the worm. I am worm. I mean,
he's the funkiest of the worms.
I mean, no one's surprised, and everyone's thinking presuming what Trump might do, and he's distancing himself. But the Trump starting five, extremely impressive, man. You got the funky worm, you got Newsy kind of in there. You got Laura Loomer. You got Mark Robinson. Rudy Giuliani made a reappearance recently. You got the couch seducer. Like, this is very incredible.
Yeah, I got to say, Andrew, I didn't really get in the trenches, so to speak. Really get into the crevasse of the Mark Robinson content.
Are you getting into the crevasse now?
As you were talking, I'm like, maybe there's something to read.
You cannot talk about it. I'm scandalized. Like, I have reached my limit. I'm soft. I'm washed. But the topics we're discussing today, make me clutch my pearls, man. I can't do it.
I mean, I don't even know where to start on this or how I can say it without it being incredibly obscene. I mean, this is just a long one. This is from September 23rd, 2011. So we're talking about, a long time ago. So maybe he's a different man.
It's the anniversary.
He no longer
wants to
have a woman pee on his chest, as he describes here. And when we hang out, she will sometimes, quote, wear her euphemism, her body fluids like perfume, meaning she will smear it behind her ears, on her neck, and on her wrist. So every time I get near her, I will smell her delightful scent.
No shaming.
He's a
him.
power user.
That is
not shaming him.
That is legal. That is not disqualifying as a policymaker.
No. I'm saying he was a nude Africa power user. Mm-hmm. He was up on them forums.
Listen, I heard they use beaver glands for flavoring berry candy back in the day, like the raspberry Skittles.
See where you're going with this.
Beaver butt. So what he's doing, this is nature's course. Shout out. I can't even shout him out, man. I can't even do it. He's
your boy. Your guy is just it's just pheromones. You know. No, what are we shaming here?
It's such a shame that somebody with this level of weirdness went into chat rooms of porn sites instead of inventing a new dance music. Like, you have so many strange thoughts. Can you contribute it to like a new form of cubism or surrealism? Instead, he wants to reinvent perfume. Like, this has been invented already. Perfume is that.
Right. And he was siloed, sequestered, cloistered in the nude Africa forums. It was I understand that he's a niche artist, but it was too obscure for the rest of us to even know this existed. He's been laboring, toiling away in virtual anonymity until now.
And some MAGA supporters are saying like, well, why now? This is convenient, but it would have happened earlier. He was already losing his race. He was kind of hurting Trump's brand anyway. So this would be indictment of the media because he didn't get this sooner. That said, who's on these websites?
I also think those. Well, it's interesting that this came out now while he's running for Senate. Okay.
Yeah, that's what happens, right?
Right. It came out while he was running for Senate. Yeah.
I mean,
interesting that he's named the vice presidential candidate, and all of a sudden people are looking into his past.
It's crazy how RFK Jr. was like, "Oh, there's skeletons in my closet. Don't you worry about." Ooh, man, do I have secrets? And all we know is someone sent foot pics to him, and his 30% of his brain is a worm.
Like, well, he's like, I have so many dark secrets that are just barely beneath the surface. Like, all you have to do is just like lay one finger on this closet door and gently touch it, and it will swing open, revealing horrifying dark secrets. Like, yeah. It's weird how this bear story came out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he told it.
It's like, oh, weird. He wanted to taxidermy a fish, so we strapped it to the top of our car, and fish juice was running down into the passenger seats. Oh,
might have been whale juice. Yeah.
Is a whale a fish? No, because whales are mammals, right?
It's interesting that his child shared this story after he was conveniently running for president. Weird.
Do you think Adrian Wojnarowski is trying to get ahead of a story? Is he like, I don't want to be around in 5 months, if you know what I mean?
You have always
Thank
been
you. I would like credit.
A big Woj critic, and you've been taking a bit of a victory lap over this last week.
Not any more so than I used. Every draft day, I kind of have to shoot off maybe 4 tweets being like, this guy doesn't offer any joy to us. Why are we rooting for him?
I think you make a valid point in that he very rarely gave you information that was not publicly known within a few minutes.
I know.
And there were times while he was at ESPN, where he would drop a story, and then they would have, you know, an article about it on the site that he would post relatively quickly after. And I get that. Okay, you're going to cover this story, but those were almost all very thinly done. It was just a way of getting a little bit more content for ESPN out of his announcements. And I'm not accusing him of using ghostwriters or anything like that, but they may have.
Well, Shams used to work for him, and he used to ghostwrite for him back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, so they'll say, okay, Joel Embiid just signed a 3-year extension for $193 million. Ooh. And then,
look at Woj,
but then within, you know, an hour later or 45 minutes later, they'll say, here's a link to ESPN about that story. Mm-hmm. And they would link, you know, Woj would link it up. And I don't know if he used his byline. I just find it hard to believe that someone as busy as he was and breaking news and talking with insiders and agents and all that was also like, oh, now let me whip out this 600-word article in the next 45 minutes. I'm not doubting him as a writer. He had columns for years. I'm just saying that feels like a job that someone else does.
And they're not,
when Woj is dropping bombs.
And it was a kind of Haberman kind of style writing, right? He was a reporter, a beat reporter. He wasn't trying to paint a picture like your boy Mark Robinson, but
right. It was very
procedural.
It would not have worked on the Nude Africa forums at all.
No, the R bombs wouldn't flow the same way. But I mean, my first inclination, like Woj kind of retired he was still on contract for a few years. And my assumption was that his sources maybe ran kind of dry. Woj is notoriously known as someone who's very competitive with his colleagues, with his competitors, wanted a lot of autonomy.
I feel like you should always be competitive with your competitors. Like that to me is like a good rule of thumb.
I mean, some people are not, right? Like one of my favorite critics of Woj, Amin Elhassan on Le Batard, doesn't seem that competitive. You know what I mean? But he's an ex-GM, but he's in the media world now, and he's not competitive with his competitors in the same way. He it coexists with them. But like Woj, I think the thing with Woj and Shams that differentiate themselves from Windhorst or your run-in-the-mill reporter is that they had an army and they cultivated this scene on social media that kind of like got under my skin a little bit as I watched something happen in real life. And we were arguing about like another Woj bomb and giving him authorship. And I'm like, I guess the subculture of Woj Nation and Shams Nation was something I deeply didn't care about that kind of muddied the thing I did care about.
Well, also, I think the Haberman comparison is not that far off because the price of Woj getting all this information was that he had to maintain relationships with people
and their
interests, whether they were
yeah.
GMs or agents. And a lot of the Shams versus Woj information broke down along almost party lines, where Clutch goes to Shams, and you have like Morey, and I want to say like the Spurs and a few other ones were like Woj heads. And then they both have a bunch of agencies, but Clutch is such a powerful agency that they actually brought Shams in. Like he is represented by Clutch. They employ him as a vehicle to announce news. That doesn't mean he doesn't discuss other NBA stories, but there is like a political party system to this. I don't know that there's like a freak off scandal brewing with
I just think
Woj.
His sources ran dry is all.
I also think that it's an annoying job. And if you don't want to do I'm on my phone all the time, like, okay, I need this information. And because as you said, the competitive element. Like, I don't want to go out there and fall off, and then everyone's like, Shams beat me,
and he
because
did
I'm no
this
longer
summer.
trying.
Right. Shams did get him this summer. And
that's what I mean, right? It's like, if he's going to say, I just don't want to do this the same way, then all that's going to happen is people are going to be dunking on you constantly, saying, Shams is windmilling on Woj again. You're like, no, trust me, I stopped caring. Yeah. Like, I'm just talking about basketball, and maybe I'll drop a story every now and then, but like, I'm not trying to rush to my phone to get this out because I want to have a life.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, yeah, you're getting absolutely like dog walked by Shams. And here's a photo of Shams, an AI generated image of Shams throwing down a vicious tomahawk on your head, Woj, as you weep. He's like, no, I wanted to spend time with my family.
Yeah. Or be GM of the Bonaventure St. Bonnie's. But I don't underestimate how hard that job is. I mean, Adam Schefter immediately went on and was like, I have no life. I suffer a lot of criticism, all this stuff. But it's a double-edged sword, because however much criticism Woj is susceptible to, people are like, oh, God, if you see him, hug him. Woj, what? Right off into the sunset, hero, and I'm like, Bill Simmons said this, but he basically echoed Amin Elhassan and the Cookies podcast, which is like, this guy's not a doctor. He didn't save lives. Like, he's a reporter. We all know what reporters do. They get information, and a lot of the information Woj has is known by many people in the industry, but Woj lets it rip. And I don't know what kind of agreement he has with his sources. He may be the only one who's allowed to let it rip, but there was, to your point about Clutch and Shams, there was people who hypothesize on the internet that Woj famously got the decision wrong. I believe he reported that LeBron James was going back to Cleveland, and perhaps Clutch fed him bad information on purpose. So he always held a grudge against LeBron James.
Interesting, because he was amazingly vicious towards LeBron when he was at Yahoo, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And he wrote, this is why I know that he can write stories, because he was clearly writing the story. Mm-hmm. He was writing columns on like a weekly basis for them. Mm-hmm. And at this point, he wasn't really the same kind of newsmaker. That role hadn't really formed yet, where it's just break the news, Woj bomb, break the news. It was beginning, and he was known as a guy who broke news, but it didn't become this all-encompassing like arms race. He didn't have a competitor. He was the guy who broke news first. And at this point, I think Shams still worked for him. So there was no competition.
But there was no Woj bomb. He wasn't a star quite like he is now.
No, he was known for breaking news, but because he didn't have a foil, that there was no arms race. It was just, he just was the guy who people told news to, and it came out first. And once in a while it'd be Mark Stein or someone else, but it was usually Woj. But it wasn't that he was beating other people to the story. He just, told people about it first, whatever. And I remember some articles he wrote were exceptionally critical of Rich Paul, of LeBron James, and really highly complimentary about Kobe. And he would write, these really soft puff pieces about Kobe, and then just slam Clutch and Rich Paul and LeBron. So I can't quite recall if those happened after the decision, but in my mind, I think you're right. Though I think those were while he was in Miami, in 2011 or whenever that started.
And maybe this is my personal culture of grievance with this kind of work, or Woj specifically, is that I get that people want to cut through the PR, the words, the framing of the NBA being like, ex-MVP Joel Embiid has signed a 3-year extension, and having it all proper and newsworthy. And they want someone to be like, Joel Embiid re-up for 3 years. Let's talk about it. Just like straight Donald Trump to the point, being like, these big dogs don't care about you. I care about you. And the Woj irony is that I think he gives his fan base that but his bias is, it kind of defaults him from being a news source for me. You go to him for the direct speed and honesty of news, but what you're really getting is his product, which remains loyal to his sources.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that's why when you look back at the stuff with him being really critical of LeBron, is it because Klutch screwed him over and made him look bad? Or is it because they knew that he was already someone who loved Kobe and didn't like LeBron, and then used that to exact whatever measure of revenge? Or was it that he represented so many agents who were funneling him information, and Klutch was seen, and 100% justifiably and provably justifiably so, as a huge threat to their business? So if you're giving information to Woj, and you're like, Woj, if I will keep giving you these stories first, but like Klutch is a problem. Right. LeBron James is starting his own agency, and he's going to be the GOAT. So this is a real issue, and no one has ever done this before. It's like a existential threat to our business model. So we're going to need you to go after them to protect our, community, our old guard of agents. So it may be tied to all of these things.
And I assume that's what I meant. Well, I assume, like, is he protecting some story, which is exactly that. When I heard he was stepping down with years on his contract still, I was like, the tide has shifted maybe to a point where, like, this is no longer fun for him. This is just kind of annoying because Klutch is a real thing. LeBron James is just accruing more backroom power. And, reporters age out. Sources kind of lose their strength. We always know of people who are attached, like our peers who are attached to NBA players who have access to backstage. And then when those players retire, they no longer have any cachet.
And this is kind of exactly what I was referring to when I was talking about the double standard with Newsy. Because yes, it is more sordid. It's not like there were nudes or that were going to Woj here by a fawning young woman, but also Woj writing stories about Klutch as a disaster because he is working with agents. Like, that is not regular journalism either. That is,
he's being Stephen A. Smith.
It's transactional.
Yeah.
And I think, like, with men, when there's no idea that this is sexual or even could be, it's viewed as just kind of the game. But as soon as like an image with a couple knockers on it goes flying through the internet, all of a sudden we're compromising journalism. I'm like, he was writing these pieces about how Kobe was like the steeliest competitor ever, and about how Kobe was, practicing in his cast after a game, and a lot of this
mythology is Woj. Yes,
it was Woj. And I'm not even saying that's good or bad. It just is what it is. But we don't view it as being compromised or being, a breach of journalistic ethics, such as Gamergate, for example.
Right. Yeah. I mean, now Woj steps into his role as a general manager of a college basketball program, which I think is interesting. And Shams is assumed to resume the role at ESPN, or maybe they would elevate Windhorst, who allegedly was suppressed by Woj all these years. I don't know. These are just reporters. Like, we could argue about refs in basketball. We could argue about trainers, but this isn't the reason I love the game. I don't scream into the night, this league, because of Adrian Wojnarowski.
I did see that the discussions about Windhorst, people proposed that his Woj bombs would be called windbreaks, and I thought that was kind of good.
That's good because if they don't land, silent but deadly, I don't know. That's like calling your assigning a moniker of misinfo when you're a reporter. Windbreaks, you don't want to be known as a fart.
I don't think it was his idea.
But there's Oasis is back. Windbreakers, stylish.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think Windhorst is good, but yeah, it's funny, even the sort of gamification of this. Like, Windhorst been underrated for years. Like, he's gonna have a breakout season with Woj out of the way. Like, it's kind of like the Tyrese Maxey of the insider NBA game. With Harden in Los Angeles, now we'll see similarly, a all-star season from the Windman.
Who is pro LeBron? I don't know. Like, Windhorst is famous for his finger guns, but if you pay attention, like last trade deadline, he was like, pay attention to the Lakers. Everyone's like, oh, Windhorst got one. Nothing happened. Like, it's an unenviable job. I think it's really stressful. I've always liked Windhorst's candor. I don't really care. Does an ESPN trade news rumor breaker matter at this point?
I don't know. I mean, look, if you're looking for a sleeper breakout candidate in your fantasy newsbreaker league, Jake Fisher, great. Maybe take him in the second, take him in the third round. I think Jake Fisher from Yahoo, or wherever he is now, I think he could be an up-and-coming young newsbreaker. I have faith in his abilities. Cultivated sources, was a Sixers guy. Yeah. Big. I'm in on Fisher as like a sleeper pick.
I mean, I want to say this stuff doesn't matter, but we know the effects of the BMM. It affects awards, legacy, Hall of Fame credentials, money. So, like, the way these people, the way writers frame stories and athletes has a direct effect on the way we consume this thing.
100%. I mean, I don't really care or give much credence to these like postseason player rankings, right? It's like, all right, here's the top 50 players in the NBA, whatever. And
I like them.
I'm not even talking about a specific one. Here's the aggregate. Here's this one. Here's this one, whatever. And it's like, Tatum is an interesting example here because
always
he's on the team that won the title. He's a good player. He's an all-star caliber player.
The fourth best guy in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he's good. He's good. This isn't even a Tatum hate spiel.
No, come on.
But it's more like, well, it's like, okay, he's better than Embiid, or he's better than LeBron. He's better than Durant. Mm-mm. I'm like, no.
He's better than Julius Randle, for sure. He's better than Brunson.
No one thinks this, but it's just this idea that he is a top 5-6 player in the league. It's like, well, it's just not true. There's no evidence that shows this is the case. This doesn't mean he's bad.
No.
It just means that if he was on a different team, that wouldn't be the conversation. It's Boston doing that. So this is why I'm bringing up Tatum, is that there is a ESPN, or I take it back, it's Netflix, which is not immune to the BMM either, but they're doing a series called Starting Five, and it's a basketball documentary. It includes LeBron, Sabonis, Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards, and Jason Tatum. And it's, from my understanding, a behind-the-scenes view of these players. And whether they put Tatum on it because Boston was such a good team, and they were like, they're probably going to go to the finals, I couldn't say. But out of all those players, Sabonis and Tatum do stand out as guys who are not really known for having dynamic personalities. And Sabonis was specifically odd because he is a foreign-born player in a small market team that is like not a contender.
But he does have a story, which is a connection to his father through the NBA, being an outsider in more ways than one to this country.
I don't think he's a bad call. It was just more unusual than you would have expected, I thought.
Man, I really loved Hard Knocks back in the heyday of that show. It was a beautiful program, and I have no interest in all this NBA content on TV, because don't they all feel like infomercials and ads? Like, you're not going to watch a Sabonis mini doc on Netflix and be like, this guy's kind of an antiquated player and he's good, but like, we don't consider him X, Y, and Z. It's just going to be a story that probably these individual players tell. And The Last Dance worked because Michael Jordan is such an asshole that it was fascinating. It was a hate watch. Or you're a shoe collector and you love images of this iconic human being. But like, this is all fluffy stuff, right? Like, I don't think was it Apple that did a documentary about KD? Somebody. It's just like it's not watchable because it is all the stuff we don't care about. And it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be off-putting. But at some point, if it doesn't provide anything new, like, I'm not watching The Bear season 3.
I think one of the issues is that players are now so accustomed to having cameras in their face. They're accustomed to using their own phones, to being on social media. And likewise, the audience is used to seeing them in the same way. You know, there's less of a peek behind the scenes when it's KD because KD shows us what he's like. He tweets, he puts up posts. You know, we've seen a lot of KD behind the scene. Some of these guys, you know, go on like Instagram Live. There's less of a mystique, and I don't think that's good or bad. It's just different. So when we would see clips of Allen Iverson behind the scenes, it's like, whoa, we don't get to see this.
Right.
We only see him on TV or at a press conference. Like, we don't get to see him like off the court unless it's in this really, you know, doctored up way. Like, okay, it's for like a Reebok commercial.
It's not even in real time. Right. It's like,
right.
A player was suspended for punching someone and we have the episode tonight. You know, like, it's not that.
So when we would see these players from the 90s and The Last Dance, that was the most fascinating part of it because we just hadn't seen that kind of footage before for these particular guys. Like, oh, here's footage from a Dream Team practice, or here's footage of Michael Jordan on a bus, like listening to his headphones. And you're like, oh, this is cool because it's new. Mm-hmm. But if you saw like KD on a headphone singing along, you'd be like, yeah, I know. He literally makes rap songs. He's friends with Rochester rappers like, you know, 38 Special. Like, we just know a lot about these guys. Like Ant. There's very little that Ant could do off camera that we would be enamored by.
Yeah.
You might say this guy's really funny, but we knew it already. We know he's personable. We know he's charming and super charismatic. He's a Riz Lord, but you don't learn that about him because now there's someone with a camera, you know, in the car next to him.
Yeah. And
players have podcasts. Like, every player has a podcast.
Like, we get the pomp of the NBA, of announcing, of Kevin Harlan glowing about these athletes. And that is a thing that I think politics-aware people are weary of. You know, it's like, we've been prepackaged all this stuff our whole lives. We want someone to cut through the noise like we talked about before. And that may be Trump, that may be AOC. Pick your fighter here. But I think as sports fans, to your point, we have instances where KD will cut through all the noise and be like, hey, you've heard all the reports from ESPN why I left the Nets. I'm talking here. Ask me anything, you know? And
hey,
exactly. I'm walking over here. But it is not useful to us to have these mini docs about these players, current players in the NBA, when we know the influence of their teams, their agents, the league protecting itself. We're not going to get anything weird. It's useless stuff.
Yeah, I think it's just a consequence of the immediacy and accessibility, availability of the social media era. It's just a different way of getting to know athletes. And for someone like Joel Embiid, he was known as a funny guy and a troll and a shit talker for 2 years before he stepped foot on the court.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy who's very private in terms of what he does, like as a person. He's like known as a homebody. Like he doesn't really go out. Now he's got, a kid and he's married, but he was never someone who was like a big party dude, from my understanding. I don't think he drinks, all this sort of stuff, but he was known as this character, and it really built his brand up. He was hitting on Rihanna, and this was kind of early when basketball players were first doing this kind of thing. And now you can find stuff from, 10 years ago when someone was 13 years old on Twitter saying, a rookie basically being like, LeBron's a bitch.
Yeah.
And, like we're so deep in this that you have access to what people were saying as a child, and it doesn't even shock us.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even resonate anymore. It's just kind of funny because it's so normalized. So I do think it is tough to do a doc now that will excite people in the way that archival footage does. Maybe in 10 years, people will say, this is so cool. Look, it's Ant when he was 22 years old, who's gone on to have like a Hall of Fame career. And they weren't there for the immediacy of the social media era. So it has the same feeling of watching AI or something like now. And like saying, I feel like time has to go by and then maybe it would be cool.
And this is not for us, right? Like it's for the NBA and Netflix to capture casual tourists. Like I'm a tourist in boxing and I want them to show me 24/7. That documentary series was great for me because it gave me an insight into a thing that I'm not an expert in. My friends who are just like, we know about this. We know about Manny Pacquiao at this point, but like the Nets retiring Vince Carter's number drew a lot of ire from basketball dorks like ourselves, but it's not for us, right? It's the pageantry of the brand. It's for kids to walk in and see these numbers. Like, who's that? Like, that's Vince Carter, undoubtedly one of the greatest players ever. But we don't have to talk about how he was better in Toronto, pre-accent, than he was in Brooklyn. It is about pageantry, which isn't for me and you.
Well, I mean, the Nets are a little different as a franchise because we both sort of scoffed this idea that he should be honored in this way. And then you go and you look at the leading scorers in Nets history, and I'll give you that top 10 list. In Nets lore, Brook Lopez, number one. And he's probably, up there in blocks. He's probably up there in rebounds, whatever. Like he is the all-time leading scorer on them. He should have his jersey retired by the Nets when, he
should be in the
out
Hall
of the
of
league.
Fame. I'm saying
there could be an argument. But Brook Lopez is not someone that anyone would really say this is an enormous star. I think he's made an all-star team. Maybe two. I would not say that he qualifies as an NBA star. He's made one in Brooklyn in a year where he put up 19 and 7
in a watered down East. I remember,
and that was before he was actually shooting threes as well, which is what kind of made his career take a second act while he was playing in Los Angeles. But regardless, here's who's on that list. And then you can say, does Vince Carter belong on it? This is just points, though. Brook Lopez, Buck Williams, Vince Carter, Richard Jefferson, Jason Kidd, John Williamson, Julius Erving, Kerry Kittles, Derek Coleman, Chris Morris. Rough group.
I mean, I'm shocked not to hear Jeremy Lin on there, but that franchise has been so crazy. And I mean, Drazen Petrovic was probably the most famous player when I think of the Nets, I think of him, obviously Julius Erving, but this is all pre-NBA. That Vince Carter team that made that famous cover of Slam magazine was fun, right? Like Richard Jefferson, Kerry Kittles, your boy, what's his name? A Cookies Hoops guest legend that I can't remember.
Oh, Jason Williams.
Jason Williams, that's right. My personal god, Keith Van Horn. Like they've had interesting players go through there, Mookie Blaylock, but damn, that is.
They've also been a little unlucky. They've been a little unlucky because Derek Coleman was a really great player, but he got hurt. Kenny Anderson never panned out, but he could have been really great. Drazen died. Jason Williams was not going to be a GOAT. He was an awesome rebounder, but he did make the All-Star team, and then he got hurt as well. So they were plagued by the injury bug. And that said, that list of all-time scorers is pretty tough.
And plagued by their owner, because the best player that ever played for the Nets was Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant, I believe, made an all-star with the Nets twice, the same number as Vince Carter. And maybe during that run, Durant was also a second-team All-NBA player. So, like, his credentials in that brief time were better than Vince Carter's, if we're doing awards, which are, noisy. But we know the dime square curse exists. That's been proven. Case closed.
By science.
Case closed. Just log on to Twitter for that fascist Turtle Bay podcast content. But is New Jersey forever cursed? Like, is that franchise of New Jersey a blight on the history of America?
Yes.
Obviously.
Well, yes.
The Sopranos was about this. This is the whole premise of The Sopranos.
It is the breakdown of civil society via suburban expanse. It is the original crime of Americana.
And the Brooklyn Nets hold that burden as well still.
It's not the ethnic cleansing of the Native Americans. It is New Jersey that is the original sin of the
everyone knows
the United States.
Everyone knows this. It isn't the sordid past of the Civil War or the splintering of our society. It's dirty Jersey.
Everyone knows this.
Everyone knows this. Come on. It's the black.
So I'm looking. Yeah, right. I was saying it's a blight. It's a blight.
Yeah.
Looking at their box plus minus, nerding out a little bit, which you don't believe in because you're a gut guy.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Julius Erving, who, it's a little weird because, like, it's not really the same franchise.
I don't consider that's way pre-NBA.
It's ABA.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
And it was also the New York Nets. It wasn't even Jersey. They're just getting, basically they're getting reverse rizzed by this because they're getting credit for having Dr. J, even though that wasn't a Jersey player.
We don't got to talk about Dr. J. Talk Darren Williams.
I was going to say box plus minus. You got Dr. J, KD, who's only there a couple of years, Jason Kidd, goated, Kyrie Irving, a couple of years, Vince Carter, like that was not the good version of Vince Carter.
No, and it was crazy that he went there.
Like
Kenyon Martin was a net.
Sam Cassell. I'm just using box plus minus. Sam Cassell played there a little bit, like a couple seasons. Stephon Marbury, absolute baller, but I would not consider his tenure there particularly successful. Michael Ray Richardson, Derek Coleman, Kerry Kittles, like that's good players, but most of them weren't really, considered like lifelong Nets. And that also applies to Darren Williams. When you look at Darren Williams, most people are going to think of him as a member of the Utah Jazz. if he was to go into the Hall of Fame, which I don't think he will.
He was
but
good,
you
though.
would say, oh, he was really good. He was an annual All-Star. Right? He might have an outside chance of going to the Hall of Fame.
I forgot Alonzo Mourning was in net. That's crazy. He played 18 games.
I forgot that as
more.
well.
He played more. I mean, we don't got to go down the list of mid players the Nets have rostered and superstars that have slipped through their fingers, like Kevin Durant, and Kevin Garnett briefly. But I want to talk more about this curse, because everything that touches the state of New Jersey turns to dog do. And like, everyone knows that when you carry the stain, the Sixers escaped such a fate, such an ill-timed fate by not moving to New Jersey, that they saved that entire
and
culture.
A lot of this is owed to your people, Andrew. The people of Philadelphia, the Chinatown neighborhood has said, no, bring it in here. We'd love to have this stadium here in Chinatown. It's going to do wonders for the local culture.
I mean, they got to figure out their lease. They got to figure out what they want to do. You know how I feel about Philly fans. Whoa, especially now, this is all tied in. Philly, New Jersey curse, Brooklyn. Ben Simmons? Is Ben Simmons back? Can he ever be back?
Ben Simmons is in the lab, and this has gotten everyone really excited, not because they actually think he's going to be any good, which is, of course, to be determined, but it's a rite of spring for the NBA, despite this happening in fall. It's like, here it is. Annually, we're getting video of Ben Simmons shooting some jump shots, and it means the season is coming close. And there's no discussion of whether or not he will actually be healthy or not, because we can't count on that. We have no idea. I, of course, rush to defend him, but at this point, I don't even care either way. Like, I'm not here to say, no, he's actually good when he's healthy. We know that's true.
I mean, but it's different this time, not to interrupt you, because Chris Brickley, his trainer, came out and was like, guys, he's finally healthy. He's back. I'm telling you, he wasn't back for 3 years, but he's back now. And that's why it came up again.
Oh, that's part of it. And I'm of the camp. I understand why people would say this is an annual event, means the season's close to starting. They will mock it. I'm like, you're not doing anybody favors by uploading Ben Simmons content. It's like, the beast you're feeding here.
Yeah.
When the trainer says, all right, time to post these Ben Simmons jumpers, he knows what he's doing.
But he knows. It is a 360-degree gift, right? Because if you love the NBA like we do, yeah, Ben Simmons, one of the most interesting players in recent memory, is healthy again. Yo, that's great. Defender, passer, let's go. I want to see this center sprinting down the court, passing to a Cam, which Cam we'll never know. But also, the 360 version of that would be, if you hate the NBA and you think these guys are lazy, you think these guys are spoiled, Ben Simmons is back in your life. This is great for everybody.
Right. Yeah, I mean, my big thing is that I don't know why they post jumper photos, because he still doesn't have a release that looks good. It's unlikely that he's going to shoot many jumpers at all, because it's like, oh no, this is the offseason. He finally became a knockdown shooter. Like, no, he didn't.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm not even criticizing him here, he should be shooting around the gym. Whatever, you're working on your game, you're getting up shots. Everyone should. It's all good. I'm not saying he shouldn't do it. When they post it, you notice they're only posting like 2 consecutive shots at any moment. Yeah. It's like when it's Tyrese Maxey, like, here he is shooting 14 NBA threes in a row. Whap, 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 whap. It's like Simmons, 2 in a row cut.
Yeah.
Here he is, 1 turnaround jumper, an isolated individual clip, cut to 2 free throws in a row. I'm like, You kind of got to get the repetition to be convincing here. If he was in the corner, just whap, 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 like 7 threes in a row, you'd be like, okay, that's maybe not good enough to do it in game speed, but that's reliable. But when you're maxing out on 2, not really necessarily going to invest too much emotionally in Simmons arriving with a jumper. But then again, I never have.
Yeah, it's like there was an extinction level event that happened in like 2023. There was a glitch and we all died. And this is why we have the Mandela effect, where I'm like, I thought we argued about Simmons' jumper before, but I guess not, because people are saying, oh, maybe he should take more jumpers and more threes to keep the defenses honest in 2024, 25. And I'm like, when he had a Hall of Fame start to his career, it's not that he took jumpers to keep defenses honest, is that he was the most devastating player in between the foul lines of the court in any given game. Like he would that was his zone. He dominated defensively and offensively in that middle court area. That was like, I'm not saying it's like my favorite kind of basketball, but no other player actively did that. So he was such a welcome player to have in the mix.
I mean, to me, if he's healthy, he'll be good. If he's not healthy, he won't be good. I mean, this is just what we've learned about him. And it makes sense as a guy who is 6'10", 6'11", super fast, super strong, super skilled at everything else besides scoring. Like not at shooting, not at post moves, but skilled at everything else. If he can't run and he isn't mobile and he's got a bad back and a bad knee, he doesn't really have much of a function. But if he is healthy and can do those things, he'll be as good as he always has been. Like, in my opinion, if he's like as healthy as he was 4 years ago, he'll be an all-star. Mm-hmm. But the odds of that happening to me are really low. I just don't think those injuries, despite sports science being better than it was, I just don't think he's going to remain healthy for long enough to resume being the player that he was in the past. I don't think people understand how little he played last season.
No, I think people 300
minutes. Yeah. Well, I just mean he played 300 minutes. Yeah. I mean, like the meme is like, oh, every year like Simmons starts playing, he's bad, then he gets hurt, and then we see off-season videos. Like, wasn't even really bad last year. He just didn't play at all.
I have yet to look this up, but the words around Brandon Roy when his name comes up are always like, what could have been? It was too brief. He was awesome. And I know his specific stats. They were good, but they weren't modern necessarily. He scored a lot. He was a good passer. He was awesome, but his game was of the dead ball era. I've yet to compare him to Ben Simmons' active years, but I have a suspicion that Ben Simmons was as good, maybe. But I want scouting reports to include things like dribble bias, or maybe the dreaded reverse dribble bias. Because doesn't Ben Simmons suffer from that RDB?
Because he's such a good ball handler at an enormous size, we assume that he's would be able to operate like a guard in other respects.
Right.
Totally. Absolutely true. He's the same size as Andre Drummond.
Yeah.
And no one would ever say, here we go again, clips of Drummond taking fadeaway jumpers, and then we'll go to the season and he won't take them.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're like, no, he shouldn't take those.
Right.
He is definitely viewed. I mean, look, he considers himself a guard. So you say, well, guards shoot. I'm like, that's just not necessarily true. He also isn't a guard in a traditional positional way anyway. Right. He's a forward, like Magic Johnson, for example.
I mean, everyone wants to eat at the red sauce place. Like, Carbone, I heard it's great. I'm like, you know what this is. It's the center doing center stuff. It's the guard doing guard stuff. But if you want some fireworks, let's say it's cheaper from like grilled off of a shopping cart maybe, by an immigrant to this country, and true delicious fireworks, then you get a player like Ben Simmons, or like, we know the parts that go into this, but we've never seen this combination.
There is something about odd players that resonates with certain fans and not with other ones.
True.
And, Gobert clearly is like the exact opposite of big man dribble bias, because he can't dribble at all on offense, which makes him a stiff. He can't shoot. He can't dribble. Doesn't really have post moves. So therefore, people are like, I think he's bad at these elements of the game that he should be better at. Therefore, his defense isn't that good. Like, I need to tear apart the reason that he ostensibly has value in the league, because I think he's bad at basketball.
Yeah.
So he's always hyper overrated. He gets played off the court. He should never win a defensive player of the year. He stinks.
Or a few. Yeah.
But it's really because he plays like a butcher out there. He just hammers at the ball. He can't do anything. Also, ironically, you remember that one-on-one game with him and Wemby that they filmed a few years back? Mm-hmm. And it's like Gobert doing between the leg dribbles and like you crossovers and Euro steps. Like, these guys are all insane.
All insane. Mitchell Robinson. Right.
Right. They just can't do it at that level, at this level.
No, because it's not
the idea that Gobert is like bad at basketball is obscene. But yeah, that would be he's getting reversed mogged by big man dribble bias.
It's hard to mog in a Jazz jersey. But speaking, you mentioned one-on-one, it triggered me because there's a new wrinkle to the old timely September debate of MJ versus LeBron, mostly by MJ fans, that LeBron recently said like one-on-one is not a true indicator of a basketball player, and he doesn't like to play one-on-one games because it's not real basketball. And everyone thought that was an indictment on him being scared, because Michael Jordan is a wonderful one-on-one player and enjoyed that, and LeBron James is a coward confirmed. But I read it as, not to go too long into this, I read it as LeBron James being like, I will beat every living person one-on-one, but it's not real. Just watch me in the game.
Yeah, I don't know what he meant specifically, but I mean, it's true what he's saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Because one-on-one is just part of the sport. LeBron's ability to beat people one-on-one and get to the basket and draw fouls is clearly what sets up the rest of his game. He would not be able to be the creative passer that he is without having the ability to bring two to the ball, as like the people like to say now. Mm-hmm. And he was able to do that in his prime when his team didn't hit enough spacing. You look at what Boston's doing. Well, there's no help, and they have shooters everywhere. So if someone's a good one-on-one player, like Brown or Tatum at scoring, they can draw help and just kick the ball out. Mm-hmm. LeBron was able to bring everyone into the lane and create passing opportunities when the lane was stacked full of defenders. Mm-hmm. So it's a totally different skill set that he has in that way. I also think about it as, personally playing pickup ball. I play very little amount of one-on-one at this point.
Yeah, they were talking about one-on-one in practice, not in a game.
Right. I play very small amounts of it. It's like if I'm in a gym, you're shooting around, and then we're trying to play full or playing twos or threes.
Like it's a small guys buffet, right? Like shorter guys excel at one-on-one if you're good, if you can shoot.
Or it's the big guy who just backs you down and then turns around and throws in like a little baby hook.
Yeah, it depends on rules. Well, if you're playing ones and twos or whatever, but
totally. But I just mean personally, this is not even about LeBron. I don't play full court because it's like a better game than one-on-one. It's certainly more fun to me because it's more running and there's teammates and more strategy. I feel like that's kind of what he's saying. That he's saying the sport is full court 5-on-5. The sport is not one-on-one.
Yeah.
This is just my own anecdotal experience, is that like when I play one-on-one, which is rare, I start realizing there's things I do that I can do that I don't necessarily in a full court game. Mm-hmm. Because in a full court game, it is a different sport. It's like, okay, let me, take an open shot, run a pick and roll, kick to someone. And it's very rare that I'm at this stage of my pickup ball thing of saying, all right, it's time for Ben to cook. It's Ben time.
Mm-hmm.
All eyes on Ben. I'm going to dribble the ball 20 times. I'm going to do 7 up fakes, and I'm going to get a shot off, like hell or high water. And in one-on-one, you kind of do that.
One-on-one, everyone has game, 100% usage.
Right. Which is something that is like very antithetical to how I play normally. But there's an AAU game, and NBA guys do it a lot. It's kind of like the I don't know if it's necessarily called like King of the Court, sort of. I don't know. But it's where you get 3 dribbles. So when you see clips of guys playing one-on-one on the NBA level, they're almost always playing that game.
Well, there's that famous, I believe there's that famous footage of KG beating every single Team USA player in that game.
Yeah, it's three dribbles. Yeah. And we didn't grow up with that, but that's now younger people do. Even, people who played AAU, it's like they learned that. And that to me is a way better game for how you would play one-on-one when it corresponds to a real situation on the court. Like, how can you like up fake someone, take 1 dribble, pull up, take 1 dribble, get to the basket, take 2 dribbles, fake, go the other direction, as opposed to like someone dribbling the ball into the ground and like slowly backing into the post, or taking 20 dribbles to get a jump shot, or getting an offensive rebound and going back up. Like, those things are not like how you play basketball really at all.
Yeah. And yeah, I read LeBron's quote as kind of generous. I'm a LeBron fan, whatever. I think he's the GOAT. I think Michael Jordan is amazing. He's a top 10 player. But like, basketball and sports is a discussion about science that I don't think we have enough. And the reason why it's hard to compare eras is because science moves at such a rapid rate, slow, then fast and slow. But biometrics, gaming the system, whether that be within rules of the game, micro rules within a one-on-one game, or medicine. It's like, it's comparing a flip phone to the iPhone 16, whatever. So it's hard because we love the StarTAC and nothing is comparable to that because we've antiquated it. So if you're in the Nokia fan club, there's nothing I can tell you about an iPhone that will convince you otherwise, and I respect that, whatever. But
right.
I think,
just
yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, like I think comparing NBA teams of the past, and this applies to players, is like saying, hey, you're a BlackBerry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great device, had certain appeal. I met
the BMM before it was BMM Drizzy
on my BlackBerry. We were typing all night because it took forever to text, and now we have a family. Like, I love the BlackBerry.
From BMM to BMM.
Yeah, and and
wait, I'm sorry, it's BBM Drizzy,
yeah.
But not the BMM Drizzy is also kind of funny.
I mean, this is the Sheryl Swoopes, Caitlin Clark debate, or Gino Auriemma, who's kind of going viral now because he was a Caitlin Clark skeptic, which makes total sense. He loves the iPhone 7. He loves the emojis on there. He could think they got too complicated, too colorful. They move too much. And as Caitlin Clark is receiving all these end of season awards and leaving behind the debate of Angel Reese and heading into the debate of A'ja Wilson or the GOAT, I see what Sheryl Swoopes has been saying. She was like, don't mess with my memories. I'm like, we will not. But technology has moved so far ahead that Caitlin Clark can now guess your thoughts as you think them in real time, which is Siri, AI, whatever. She is a leap forward in a sense that, like, a BlackBerry shouldn't be able to make sense of it because it's a BlackBerry.
Right. And I think, without getting into a big Caitlin Clark conversation, which we've done many times, there's going to be more Caitlin Clarks. There's going to be more.
Juju, let's go.
Right. And I just mean that model, the LeBron model, the Harden model. There'll be other women who play that way. I mean, even, Alyssa Thomas plays that way to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
She does it differently. It's not based on perimeter shooting. It's based on being a like brolic post player who gets to the basket, draws a double team, and then kicks the ball to like another big who is just lurking in the lane. And without a deep delve into the WNBA playoffs, which just started, Connecticut, it's odd because it's in a non-location in some ways. It's out of a casino. It's not in New Haven. It's not that close to New York City. It's just sort of this weird generic place to have a WNBA team. A thing went a little bit viral the other day talking about how they were sharing practice time in a gym before they're going into the playoffs. That Connecticut team,
nasty,
reminiscent of like Knicks, Heat 90s squads, really chippy, great defensively, kill on the boards. I was mostly thinking, not that the Liberty aren't amazing. They're a great team. They're the favorites to win the title. They cruised to victory in their first game yesterday. But that New York aesthetic that the Knicks love, Liberty. Connecticut is right there.
Yeah.
Connecticut's right there. Liberty is a good team too. I mean, they're great. But Connecticut kind of has that grimy, gritty feel. But they're like a team without a city.
You know how they do in Connecticut? The streets of Connecticut? Don't take
Peace, Connecticut.
Yeah. Going to the arena with their hard hats on and their lunch pails. I mean, the WNBA playoffs as they move forward are going to go by so fast. Series of 3. It's not even worth talking about the minutia of games.
Yeah.
I wonder, if probably Caitlin Clark will have a swift dismissal. She might not win a game. And there will be more debate because like she's not primetime ready. Like she maybe do it when it counts, and it'll come back to the Cheryl Swoops thing. And I don't want to disparage Cheryl Swoops and say she's just a BlackBerry, but like the BlackBerry and StarTech go into the Hall of Fame. They are technological award winners. That's why we give out awards, because we can't compare statistics or achievements in different eras. So you're an MVP, and you're also an MVP, and that's all we can do kind of in life. So respect to Cheryl Swoops. I didn't want to sound disrespectful, but Caitlin Clark is going to have a swift exit, and it is this thought feels so dumb to me, but it is a team game. Connecticut's the better team. Caitlin Clark is the best player, maybe in this series, possibly not. But it's a good season. I can't wait for this to unfold. Go New York, pick up our Liberty mob tees. It's hour 2. Too late. We were going to do this in minute 1. We did it in hour 2.
So, minute 1 of hour 2.
That's right. But
right before we leave, the last point about the WNBA in their playoffs, because as you said, it goes too fast, where not because that's a bad thing, but if we talk about something now, we might be midway through the next series by Monday.
Yeah.
Because it's the best of 3. And the first 2 are at the home arena of the better team.
Why did they do it on a football Sunday? Why did they have 4 games during football Sunday?
Why does their app not work? Why do you go to their website and it gives you Tuesday's games at the top of your screen instead of the one that's currently on TV right now? There's a lot of questions.
Caitlin Clark is not even on the poster for the 8 best players in the tournament. From each.
Absolutely bizarre. Yeah. Super, super weird. But the one last point I wanted to make about this is, when you are a 3 seed, you are the 3rd best team in the WNBA. You are a gnarly squad. You are good. And it's like, all right, you did it, Fever. You have a 500 record.
Yeah.
You get to go to the playoffs. It's like, that is a rough matchup. All right, best of 3 on the road against an absolutely elite team. Like, good luck. And I'm not making excuses for Caitlin Clark. She was terrible last night or yesterday afternoon. She missed everything.
Yeah.
She shot horribly, which happens when that's a big part of your game and you're going against a really good team. This is not an anomaly. But I was just saying that is a tough ask to basically get out there and try to compete on the road, best of 3 series against a fantastic team. So there were no upsets yesterday, even though the the Lynx were in a dogfight against the Phoenix slate, but it ended up winning by like about 10 points or something. That was a good game, though.
And to Caitlin Clark's credit or benefit, NBA experts, the staunchest NBA experts have proven that if you don't make the finals, it doesn't count. The season never happened for Caitlin Clark. If she loses the finals, that's 0 for 1. If she doesn't make the finals, we'll just forget all about it.
Didn't happen.
6 for 6.
You know what?
You know what did?
You know what did happen?
This part.
Perfection? Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.